So far, at the time that I'm filming this, I've performed live with my dual Novation circuit setup 5 times. By the time this comes out, depending on when that is, it might have been 6 times. And I've developed some opinions along the way. So today I want to talk about some features that I personally find indispensable when building up a hardware-based live set. In this case, I'm going to be demonstrating those features and workflows on my Novation circuit setup because that's what my live set is built on, and these devices really tick those boxes for me. However, a lot of the stuff I say will apply to multiple different devices, and I'm hoping as a result of this video that I can kind of put it in manufacturers' brains that these are some features that I would at least like to see more of. And my other goal here is, beyond just getting my opinions out there, to put stuff in your brain that might help you in constructing your own live set using the tools that you have. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start pretty high level, very, very obvious, and then move my way kind of deeper and deeper into more specifics. So the first thing that I need for performing a live electronic music is just a sequencer with samples and or synths. I need to be able to put in the notes in advance and then have them play back. Pretty straightforward. Either samples or synthesis would work. For this kind of music, for stuff that's kind of techno adjacent, samples I find a little more useful. It's just more flexible, you have more options, you can have things like vocals and many varied sounds at your fingertips. So that's the reason in this case that the Circuit Rhythm is the primary device, by the way. It's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for this kind of music because it does lean more percussive and does lean more heavily sample-based. But I basically just need a container for notes and then something for those notes to play, whether that be one-shots or synths. That's pretty generic. So far, I'm pretty much describing every groovebox ever created. I do really, really like having both. I will say that right away. Having predominantly a sample-based workflow and then filling it out with some synths. Like, check this out. Versus this just fills it out a lot. And I find that really useful, and I'm going to get back into another aspect of synthesis in a second. Now that I have a bunch of tracks with a bunch of notes punched into them, I need a way to bring those tracks in and out in order to build up an arrangement. So the most obvious form of this is just mutes and unmutes. This, for me, works great, especially for more kind of progressive styles of music. So progressive house, techno, that kind of thing. Because you can have a kind of master loop and then just keep ratcheting up the energy level instrument by instrument and bringing stuff in over time. For something like bass music, where it's heavily based on builds and drops, this muting and unmuting would be a bit less effective. You need some progression in order for the muting and unmuting to work, I think. So you've got your patterns and you're muting and unmuting stuff to bring stuff in, but you can't just have one static loop. You need a way to switch between different sequences or different patterns. And so that's the next thing that I find absolutely indispensable is a set of patterns and the ability to switch between them on the fly. Ableton style. I could also totally work with a more MPC style setup where you have one discrete sequence and then you switch to the next discrete sequence and then the next one. I could also work with that just fine. I personally prefer clip launching because it's a lot more dynamic. You can recombine stuff on the fly and get more out of just a few tracks, but that is ultimately personal preference. Hey, real quick, if you're watching this at any point in December 2024, you can use the code WINTER20 to get 20% off in our newly revamped merch store. We've got some new designs like this one based off my song Entropy, which I think looks freaking sick, and a variety of things like shirts and hoodies or mugs or stickers. If that would happen to be the kind of thing that you're interested in, you can check the merch shelf below this video or the link in the description. And regardless, thanks for watching and let's get back into it. So now that we can bring stuff in and out and we can switch between patterns, let's go one step larger. I utterly rely on the ability to switch between entire batches of patterns all at once. For a lot of devices, this takes the form of scenes, which are often just containers for patterns. And so you can combine and recombine a bunch of individual patterns or individual clips into a package, which is a scene. I'm still within one project on both of these devices. I'm just recombining all of these patterns that I've created. If I was only switching between patterns, I could probably make it work, but being able to switch between an entire batch of patterns is what really allows a song structure to start to form, or at least a more complex song structure than just muting and unmuting parts. Now, pin that in the back of your brain, and let's do a quick little pivot to something I kind of alluded to earlier. The next thing I need is the ability to tweak parameters of my different sounds on the fly. Once again, this skews towards progressive music, so things like filter cutoffs are great for this. Distortions. Maybe a bad example in this case, but here's another filter cutoff example. Bring this in slowly. Now that that's established, mute and unmute. And you've got a pretty hype little moment there. And I can do stuff that's a little subtler, for instance. Okay, maybe that's slightly excessive, but opening up the filter cutoff on this allowed me to slowly raise the energy level over time, making this drop feel more euphoric as it goes on. Being able to tweak aspects of the sound on the fly like that means that you can progress a song and do as much as possible live. Like, yes, I've programmed in all these notes. Yes, I've even programmed in quite a bit of automation in certain places, but I still want this to be as live as humanly possible, dancing on the edge of everything being kind of dangerous, where if you mess up, it all falls apart. I don't want to be over that line. I want this to be fairly error-proof and recoverable, but I want to be doing as much myself as humanly possible. And being able to tweak stuff on the fly is big for that. Some other devices will also let you set macros, which I find hugely useful, but now that we've talked about tweaking individual sounds, let's bring that together with switching between entire batches of patterns. This is the thing that made me want to make this video. The big thing that I personally find indispensable for live performing is a way to basically swap everything out all at once. And this is the thing I love about the circuits, and I've talked about this at length, so if you've watched my channel for a while, you're probably rolling your eyes. I love project switching. And this is the thing that can be done a few different ways. And regardless of how it's done, I would love to see more devices be very much built to do this, what I'm about to show. The big, easy one is project switching. Because inside a project is a set of patterns, a set of samples, and on the tracks, a set of synth patches. And then when I switch projects, all of that could get wiped away if I wanted it to. Now, that was a little bit jarring on purpose, but if I use overlapping sounds, I can make those transitions really freaking smooth. We're leaving this song behind. And now, we've got a completely new set of sounds and patterns to play with. This is what allows you to go from just one song being jammed live to an entire live set. The ability to swap everything out at once. Parameters, sounds, patterns, everything. So even something like switching sets of patterns is not always quite sufficient, although it can take you pretty far. So a lot of devices have step automation, where you can automate a parameter on the step sequencer on a step-by-step basis. That's another pretty good way to have stuff just reset instantly when you switch to a new pattern, is you step automate it. For example, I've got two song sections here, and then a breakdown. I've automated the cutoff of this synth. When I kick in this second scene and this second set of patterns, I've automated the filter frequency to immediately ramp up. So regardless of what it was at before, it will be stuck on what I want it to be stuck on. That's a very quick example, but you could go absolutely ham with this, and I use it wherever I find the need to. So if you have some sort of sequencer and a set of sounds that sequencer can play, if you have some sort of container for those sequences and some way to group those sequences together, some way to tweak parameters, and then some way to switch all of that out semi-instantaneously, you've got what you need to build up a hardware-based live set. And there are a lot of devices that fit that description because I've made it intentionally kind of generic for just the essentials. And hopefully, if you combine that and just using your ear to find musical ideas that go together well and trying to create connective tissue between your different major sections, hopefully you can see the kind of strategy that you would use to build up a live set. And manufacturers, if you're watching this, give us more ways to have every parameter reset all at once instantaneously, whether that be project switching like on the Innovation circuits, or whether that be something like on the Roland MC101, where you can swap out which patch you're on based on which pattern you're on. And of course, there's things like step automation. I really value being able to just wipe everything that you were doing away instantaneously and go into a new section. I should also mention being able to mess with your tempo in real time. Very handy, especially if you're doing something that's kind of multi-genred. If you'd like to see at least one iteration of the live set played all the way through, you can check this video out up over here. And if you'd like to see a massive playlist of me developing that live set kind of in real time on camera, you can check this out down over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with a new video in a little bit.